On April 21st, 2025, Pope Francis died at the age of 88. When a pope dies, the Catholic Church begins one of the world's oldest continuously operating electoral systems, the Papal Conclave, a centuries-old process by which the Catholic Church selects a new pope. The word conclave comes from the Latin cum clave, meaning with a key. And that's not just poetic. The Papal Conclave literally involves the cardinals locking themselves in a room until they reach a decision. No distractions, no outside influence. In the early centuries of the Catholic Church, there was not a consensus institutional method for choosing a pope. Sometimes a pope selected his own successor, sometimes local politicians and rulers got involved. The whole process could get messy. Then in 1274, conclaves were formalized by Pope Gregory X, who issued Ubi Periculum, a decree that officially established the rules of the conclave, complete with locked doors and limited outside contact. The goal was to bring order to a process that had often been chaotic, slow, and open to political interference. Today's conclave procedures are governed by the Apostolic Constitution Universi Dominici Gregis, issued in 1996 by Pope John Paul II and updated in 2013 by Pope Benedict XVI. This document is essentially the blueprint for modern papal elections, laying out everything from who the electors are to how ballots are conducted. When a pope dies, the Church enters a period of sede vacante, Latin for vacant seat, and a somber but meticulous process kicks off. A cardinal appointed to manage the papal household called the Camerlengo assumes a critical role. He declares the seat vacant, secures the late pope's personal effects, seals the papal apartments, and arranges for the destruction of the pope's special signet ring called the Fisherman's Ring. A new Fisherman's Ring will be forged for the next pope. The day-to-day governance of the Church falls to the College of Cardinals. Cardinals are senior clergy appointed by the Pope. They're usually bishops, and they serve as the Pope's closest advisors. They're also the ones responsible for electing the next Pope. Technically, any baptized Catholic man is eligible to be Pope, even someone who isn't a priest. But in practice, for the last several centuries, every Pope has been chosen from among the cardinals. During this period of sede vacante, they govern only in a very limited capacity, observing the principle nihil innovator. Nothing new is to be enacted. As in, the cardinals can only handle routine business and matters that can't wait. They can't issue any new teachings, they can't make major appointments or policy changes that are reserved only for the Pope. Most Vatican officials, like the Secretary of State and heads of departments, also suspend their active duties. From the moment the Pope is pronounced dead, the cardinals have 15 to 20 days to gather in the Vatican from all over the world to join the conclave. Only cardinals under the age of 80 are allowed to vote, which was a rule instituted in 1970 by Pope Paul VI. As of 2025, there are 252 cardinals, and only 135 of them are eligible to vote. Even though those over the age of 80 are not eligible to vote, they can still join the preliminary meetings in Rome before the conclave, discussing the needs of the Church and what qualities the next pope should have. And any cardinal who is eligible to vote, but for serious reasons can't attend, like severe illness, is simply absent. There is no voting by proxy. On the morning the conclave is to begin, all the cardinal electors gather for a special mass in St. Peter's Basilica, called the Mass pro eligendo pontifice, for the election of a pope. This mass invokes the guidance of the Holy Spirit as the cardinals prepare to undertake one of the most important decisions of their lives. After mass, the cardinal electors then gather in one of the most iconic buildings in Vatican City, the Sistine Chapel, famous for the ceiling painted by Michelangelo. But during a conclave, the chapel becomes a voting chamber, carefully prepared for secrecy and security. Inside the chapel, each cardinal takes an oath of secrecy and fidelity to the rules. They also swear not to be influenced by secular authorities or external pressure in their vote. And secrecy is taken very seriously. No phones, no newspapers, no outside news of any kind. The Vatican even uses electronic jamming equipment to block signals in or out, and the whole place is swept for surveillance devices. Besides the cardinals doing the voting, only a small group of support staff are allowed inside. The secretary of the College of Cardinals, a few assistants, and medical staff. And they all need to swear an oath to secrecy as well. The entire space is transformed from one of the most heavily touristed sites in the world to one of the most private spaces. After all of this, the Master of Ceremonies declares extra omnes, Latin for everyone out, commanding all non-electors to leave the chapel. The doors of the Sistine Chapel are then closed and locked from the inside. Thus begins the conclave. The cardinal electors then proceed to the actual voting. Each elector votes on a rectangular paper ballot. The upper half is printed in Latin, eligo in summum pontificem. I elect as supreme pontiff, with a space to write a name on the lower half. Usually one ballot is held on the very first afternoon, and in subsequent days they follow a schedule of up to 4 ballots per day, 2 in the morning, then a break for lunch and prayer, and then 2 in the afternoon. Each cardinal in turn approaches the altar of the chapel with his folded ballot and declares, "I call as my witness Christ the Lord, who will be my judge, that my vote is given to the one whom before God I think should be elected." He then places his ballot into a large chalice or urn. Once all the ballots are cast, cardinals chosen to be the vote counters mix them up to randomize the order. They count the total number of ballots before reading each one aloud. Each time a ballot is concluded, the outside world waits for a signal from the Sistine Chapel chimney. If no one was elected in that round, the ballots are burned with a chemical mixture that sends up black smoke, indicating no pope yet. And if a ballot finally produces a new pope, the papers are burned with a mixture that sends out white smoke, the signal that habemus papam, we have a pope. A successful election requires a 2/3 majority. This 2/3 rule has been in place for most of the last 800 years and is intended to ensure a broad consensus. The requirement for a supermajority sometimes means that the conclave goes through multiple rounds of inconclusive voting as the cardinals gradually coalesce around a candidate. Often the early ballots are exploratory or ceremonial. It's said that in the first ballot, many cardinals will cast a respectful vote for someone not expected to win, for example to honor a senior figure. Real contenders, or papabili, or popables, begin to emerge by the second day. If no candidate has reached 2/3 after 3 full days of voting, which is approximately 7 or 8 ballots, the process is paused for a day of prayer, reflection, and informal discussion. This break allows cardinals to reconsider and perhaps coalesce around a compromise candidate if the early frontrunners are at an impasse. A brief exhortation is given by the senior cardinal to encourage unity, and then voting resumes. Under the current rules, after 12 to 13 days of voting without a result, the conclave will narrow the choice to the top 2 candidates from the last vote and hold a runoff between them, with the 2/3 majority still applying, though this runoff mechanism has never needed to be used yet since modern conclaves have all reached a consensus well before this stage. In practice, most conclaves of the last century have lasted only a few days. For example, the 2013 conclave that elected Pope Francis took 5 ballots over 2 days, and the 2005 conclave that elected Pope Benedict XVI took 4 ballots over barely 24 hours. The rules about pauses and runoffs are there mainly as a safeguard to prevent deadlock. Once a candidate receives 2/3 on a ballot, a series of steps kick off. The Dean of the Cardinals asks, "Do you accept your canonical election as Supreme Pontiff?" If the elected cardinal accepts, which he's free to decline, he becomes pope immediately. If he's not already a bishop, he's ordained on the spot, but in modern times, all cardinal electors have already been bishops. The dean then asks, "By what name shall you be called?" The new pope then chooses a papal name, often signaling the style of leadership he hopes to embody. For example, Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio became Pope Francis in 2013, inspired by Saint Francis of Assisi. At this point, the conclave ends, and the new pope is led to the so-called Room of Tears, where papal vestments in multiple sizes await. It's called the Room of Tears because it's said that many popes have wept here, overcome with emotion. Once vested, he receives the obedience of the cardinals, who each offer support and prayer. Then comes the dramatic public announcement. The senior cardinal deacon steps onto the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and declares Habemus Papam, followed by the pope's birth name and chosen papal name in Latin. Moments later, the new pope appears on the balcony and greets the crowd. He delivers a short message and offers his first Urbi et Orbi, a blessing to the city and to the world. With that, the world meets its new pope. His papacy has officially begun, ready to lead the Catholic Church into its next chapter. Hey folks, thanks for watching. I'd like to invite you to a guest lecture that we're hosting that I think you'll really enjoy. It's called Environmental Catastrophe, The Fall of Rome and the Rise of Christianity, and it's with Dr. Travis Proctor. He's a scholar of early Christianity and a longtime friend of the channel. Now, theories about why Rome fell are basically a genre at this point. You've probably heard everything from barbarian invasions to moral decline, but this talk explores a different angle that historians have been exploring in recent years. Did disasters like plagues and natural catastrophes help bring down the Roman Empire? And in turn, did these cause a rise in apocalypticism that paved the way for Christianity? Dr. Proctor is the real deal. He's a scholar of early Christianity. His work has been published in top academic journals like the Harvard Theological Review, and in the classroom, he's known for making ancient religion feel relevant, so I think you're in for a treat. As always, if you want to register, it's pay what you want, as little as $1, and we're hosting on Zoom on June 4th at 1:30 p.m. US East Coast time. Everyone who registers will get a recording of the lecture, so don't worry if you can't make it live. Click the link below to register and come hang out with us and learn something new. Hope to see you there.